I'm always surprised when it works.
I know, right? It's so funny. You know, I just realized I'm like sitting here talking with these in, but they're not plugged in. So let me do that. So you guys can hear me a little bit better.
That's amazing.
Like,
that's amazing.
I hear them in my ears. Yeah.
That's awesome.
It's been one of those days. It's been a long day. Okay, first
I can
things first,
appreciate
how
that.
do you say your last name?
Mathis.
How do you say your last name? See,
Mathis.
I was like, Mathis. Like the singer. Who was the singer?
Like Johnny Mathis.
Johnny Mathis. There it is. Aw, that's awesome. Yep. Yay. Yep. So it's so nice to meet you. I'm so excited to talk to you.
It's so nice to meet you. And we have a friend, Michael McClendon is our friend together.
I knew Michael from when I lived in Virginia and he was going to school there. How did you meet him?
He did the Youth Career Workshop in Atlanta a couple years ago.
That's awesome.
Isn't that awesome?
He's such a cool dude.
He's amazing.
See, this just goes to prove that this community, no matter like what city you're talking about, is such a small knit community. We just know everyone.
Yeah, for sure.
That's awesome. So before we get started, I just want to tell everybody who's watching that while this is a conversation between me and him, it's also a conversation between all of us. So if you are listening to this and you have a thought that comes into your head or you have a question that you want to ask, feel free to do that. You can do that in one of two ways. You can either put it in the comment box or you can hit the question card and that'll pop up and I'll be able to pull up the question for him kind of live together. By the way, Benjamin, is it Ben or Benjamin? Which do you prefer?
Depends on if my mom's in the room. But you can say Benjamin's fine.
Benjamin's fine. Okay, good. My husband's the same way. He's Jonathan to his entire family, but John to him and his friends.
Absolutely.
So I have a list full of questions, but basically I bought your book. Oh. And I've been poking around your book, and I definitely want to read something from your book today. I pulled a snippet. I was like, it's so good. But for those of you, including me, who is just meeting you for the first time today, why don't you tell everybody sort of about you? You know, your background as an actor, how you started your studio. Like, tell me the whole story.
Well, I'm from Atlanta, Georgia, originally. That's
nice. Nice.
I went to school at Webster University Conservatory in St. Louis, and then I moved to New York, where I did theater, and I was on a soap opera in New York, and I was an ultimate Frisbee coach. And that's what I did.
That's amazing. What a great special skill to have on your resume.
That was like the skill. That was the only skill, really.
That's awesome.
And then I went to grad school out in California in 2005. That's what got me to California. And I became a certified teacher of Fitzmaurice voice work, voice and body practitioner. And then after I graduated school, I was working actor in Los Angeles, and I was also a professor at University of San Diego. And I lived in the middle in Newport Beach. So I drove about 6 hours a day for 2 years. And I was married at the time, and that got me divorced.
She's like, you're never home. Yeah.
Yeah, right. I mean, I can't really blame the commute. It might have had more to do with me than the commute, but it sure didn't help the commute. But that was a real changing point for me. And I had always been teaching. I've been teaching for about 20 years. And at that time, I was working with my own set of students, and we were developing what is now crash acting. And so it's over about 12 years, 10 years or something like that. I'd have to do the math, that we've been doing this. And in parallel to that, we created Urban Confessional, which is a free listening movement where we stand on street corners and we hold signs that say free listening. And we listen to people. And that came out of many things in my life, but it started with that community of actors. And it was a real way to take, listen, I love acting. I love acting training. I love all of that stuff, but it's so safe and sterile and classroom based and white and European. And it's like, this is really boring. And it seems like most of my teachers were teaching what they were taught, and they were teaching what they were taught. And then in the studio market in Los Angeles of these teachers who are teaching Meisner, they're teaching Chekhov, and then they equate their value based on their proximity to the original teacher. It just seemed like such a racket that didn't make much sense to me personally. So I said, let's get out of the classroom. Let's go listen to people. Let's be a part of the world. And let's take a different approach to acting, a more guerrilla approach to acting. And so that's what we've been doing. And so Urban Confessional now is a huge movement. We're in 80 countries around the world, and started with these actors in LA. And then we're still doing our thing. And so now we have a studio in LA called Crash Acting, and it's a beautiful space.
It's a beautiful space. We've shot a
scene. That's how you, right.
It's a gorgeous space. We shot a multicam scene of all things in your space. So that's really fun.
Yeah,
that's
right,
awesome.
right. And so we got it's such a, I love the space. It's so welcoming, and I hope that it feels inviting, and it does not feel like there's an authority in the space, and that it is a home for people. And that's the intention. And I hope that's what it is. That's
awesome. One person asked what your book is called. Why don't you go on and tell them?
Right. So that book is called You the Career, and you can get it on Amazon. And I guess that came out in 2018, maybe, or 17, 18. Okay. It must be, or 19. I don't know. I don't know what year it is now. Oh, I did.
2020. I know it feels like. What year are we in? Because we've had quite a break. Interestingly, Carmen, hi Carmen, she just popped on. She's actually the one we shot in your space.
Yeah, that's right. Hey Carmen, good to see you.
That's awesome.
So that book came out. That book came out in 2018, and I do workshops on it, and it's been a whole lot of fun to share those philosophies and ideas.
That's awesome. So this approach, I've never heard anyone talk about the craft of acting quite in the way that I've sort of heard you in pieces talk about it. I've not been in your class, but you did a live maybe like a month ago or something, where I happened to pop in, and right at that moment you were talking about acting as a tradition.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, can you expand on that? Because I have a bunch of other questions, but I just think this is such a cool and unique thing, and it makes you feel like we're not just in this void to go and do a job and a job here and a job there. It feels more encompassing. It's so cool. So can you talk a little bit about that? Because I just think that's such a neat thing.
Yeah, absolutely. I've articulated, I haven't written this down anywhere, but I share with my class pretty regularly 10 different biases that I have. I think it's important for a teacher to always say, this is my bias, this is where I'm coming from, at least for now, and you don't have to believe everything I'm saying, because I know that I'm not the truth here. This is just where I'm coming from. And one of those biases is that acting is a tradition. And I love that idea. It gives me a lot of comfort, because what it speaks to me is that it's much larger than we think about it. And that people for thousands and thousands of years have been doing this before us, and they will do this after us. And a good friend of mine who developed Black acting methods, who you should definitely get on here.
Yeah. I saw she was on there with you, and I was like, ooh, I need to write her down.
She's the best, right?
Yeah.
And she's, most of us were taught that acting originated with the Greeks in form of worship, the Dionysus and things. And what she's been able to bring to the field is that actually there's a lot of evidence and a lot of research in history that shows that acting goes way beyond the Greeks, way even into African cultures. But we could even probably take it back to African cultures, where we would say everybody came from Africa.
Right.
But in each culture, there is these deep, deep origins. And almost all of the traditional origins of acting have to do with worship and ritual and things like that. And when we see that this has been spawned over thousands of years as a form of worship and ritual, and we become part of something larger. And the question for me then is, once you decide to become an actor, you decide to become a part of a tradition. So what are you going to add to the tradition? How are you going to serve the tradition? And then
how are you going to honor the tradition?
Right? How are you going to honor the tradition? Yeah, this isn't just like a thing you do to get famous. This is an ancient art form that people have been doing. And then we have to understand that Hollywood and Broadway is like a blip. This is like an insignificant amount of time, but we focus so much on that little thing, this Hollywood thing. How do I get an agent? How do I get famous? What do I do at an audition? So much of our focus is there that we forget about the transformative origins of our tradition. And I think it can make us feel isolated. It can make us feel like we're in a capitalistic hustle and not in the flow of some ancient thing that started way before us and will continue way after us.
It's so
It's
good.
good. I like it.
It's so good.
It makes
Oh my
sense
gosh.
to me.
It makes sense to me too. And yeah, okay, so I want to read this portion. This is from towards the back of your book in the section called Practice.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to read this. So for those of you guys who are watching now or who are going to watch here in the future, his book is called You the Career. And it kind of reminds me of a book that you would find by Stephen Pressfield. If Stephen Pressfield were to write specifically about acting, I think this is what it would look like. Even the structure of it and like the look of it on the page feels like, you know, the War of Art or Do the Work or something like that. And I know that kind of the things I want to talk about a little bit today is you have this thing that you break down what you call the corporate economy versus the creative economy. Mm-hmm. So I want to kind of have you walk through those things, and then the three things. One of the things we kind of put on the promo materials is like the three things people can do to sort of have a everlasting career. So we can talk about that stuff. But there's also, when I was reading through your book, you mentioned the things you can do versus the someone you should be.
Oh, yeah.
So good. All right. So, cause I have been working with a coach, like a life coach for the past year or so. And one of the things that I've really learned is in any goal that I put out there, it's less about achieving the goal and it's more about who I become in order to reach the goal.
Right. That's beautiful.
Which I was like, oh, his book talks about that. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is a little snippet from your book. I'm not going to read the whole thing, but yeah. So this is in the section called Practice, and you say, "What if I told you that most people approach their acting career like a battle they cannot win? No matter the victories, no matter the ladder they climb, there's always more to achieve. Always another step on the ladder. There's always someone above them, someone who looks down on them. There's always something." For them, career is a war, and then every day is a battle, and every day, no matter what happens, they lose. Guess what? It doesn't have to be this way. Instead of thinking about your acting career as a battle you can't win, think of it as a pursuit you cannot lose. Your acting career is not a thing to be achieved, not a skill to be mastered, not a life spent burdened with judgments, evaluations, and auditions. It's not a job to be executed. It is a practice to be lived. And when I read that, I was like, what? Our town is so mired in audition classes, on-camera classes, comedy, commercial, headshots, reels, like all the tools that are wonderful and you absolutely should do them. But if they are not hooking into this larger purpose of this is a practice that is a lifelong thing, it can feel it's exactly what you've already talked about. Empty. There's no joy. Like it can be stripped of all those things. But when you realize it is a practice to be lived, I feel like it can shift your whole perspective on stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
So good. Good job, man. That was really good.
Yeah. It makes me feel good to hear you say that, but it's, that's a huge shift for me. It's a huge shift for me in my life, and it's a practice. Also, I'm shifting all the time in that way. But I think about acting a little like yoga, and yoga is a practice, and law is a practice, medicine is a practice. We use that word with other things, and in those other things, there seems to be at least a quality of the inability to be perfected. There's an understanding that this is something we're going to grow with, and every day could be different. Mm-hmm. And the other thing that strikes me when I think of acting as a practice, to me, it allows me to assume my evolution in the work.
Yeah.
And I think too many actors, too many of us, all of us, we see this work maybe as a 2 steps forward, 1 step back, and it's like this kind of a thing. But if we have a practice mindset, everything is moving us forward, just like yoga. Some days you go to yoga or you do something like that and it's like, oh, this is the stupidest shit ever. And then sometimes you're like, oh, this is amazing.
This is amazing, life-changing. Yeah.
Oh, right? And then you post on Instagram about it. But both of those days, the difficult day and the enlightened day, are part of the practice and just as valuable to us.
Yeah.
And the other thing that I would say about practice and the difference between a corporate and a creative economy is really the difference between a transactional and a transformational mindset.
Yeah. So let's get into these two things that your
Yeah.
book is really about, this concept of a corporate economy versus a creative economy and what the difference is there
Right.
when it comes to this type of work in acting, right?
Yeah.
So how do you define kind of corporate economy, and what do you think are the hallmarks of that?
Right. So for me, well, first, the word economy is interesting.
Yeah.
That's a weird word.
Yeah.
And I had to look it up. And from what I could tell, that did come from the Greeks, but I don't know. Maybe it came from Egypt. I have no idea. But from my research, it came from the Greeks. And it used to mean that the word economy would describe the ruling order of your house. So it would describe what God you worshiped in the Greek God. So you would have your house and you would say, well, this is the God that we worship, and therefore this is how we behave. And so it was an indicator of what I could expect when I come to your house, what was appropriate, what was good, what was the ruling order of your house. And then somewhere around the Enlightenment and then even further into the Industrial Revolution, well, that would be much later than that, but we made it an economic term, which of course became the God that rules our house, money, ironically enough. So there we go. So that in and of itself, I thought was very interesting. So anyway, so I said, well, to me, it seems like artists there is that corporate economy that is transactional, that is important. Like you said, reels and headshots and things you do to get something. Right. Transactional things we do every day. We buy our coffee. We do this so that we get that. It's not bad at all. There's no moral judgment on it. It's a great way to organize our life. It's a horrible way to create our life. Right. And so we have a transactional approach to acting, unfortunately, many people. And so, like you said, they'll take a class so that they get closer to a casting director or who might get them a job. And so everything is transactional, and it leads to that kind of desperate feeling in actors where we don't trust what they do, or we're like, what do you do? And they get frustrated because the transactions aren't working. I took the class. I worked with Margie Haber. Why am I not booking? Right. This kind of obsession with the result. Yeah. And I see that not just with actors. This is the nature of our culture. This is the deal.
Yeah. Well, it's very, very, very American.
It is. Absolutely.
It's very American.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And I don't hate it. I don't mind it. Sure. There's a place for that. But I think for the artist, we have to realize that that's not the source of creativity. That's just the management of it. And so I talk about how we can get in a corporate economy mindset, and how to know that you're there is when doubt and fear and these things are driving your work. Impatience and entitlement and greed, and these things are really a part of your work, and they show up in interactions with their actors. So if you go to an audition and you sit down and you go to the sign-in sheet, when you used to go to the sign-in sheet, and you sit down and you see all of the names and you start going, oh my God, they're with better agents than me. That's a product of the corporate economy mindset. If you are taking an acting class right now because you were seduced by their alumni and they tout their famous alumni, and so you want to go study with them, that's a corporate mindset. Because there's implicit in that decision is, I'm going to work with that teacher because that teacher knows that famous person, and then I will become that. Unfortunately, I don't believe a good teacher can promise a transaction. Right. And so that makes it difficult to sell a class, So, I mean, it's a whole thing here. But the artist needs to be looking for something different, that creative economy, which is transformational. And I guess my best example around that is if you go to see the sunset, I can't tell you that you're 35% better or anything like that. It's not quantifiable thing. Right. No. Yeah. And it's better when you see the sunset and you're with other people. So things that are transformative by nature, you want to share. You want to revel in. You want to offer to others. So it inspires generosity and hope and giving, and then our work becomes more sustainable. It becomes more aligned to our life. It becomes more creative, it becomes more beautiful, and it becomes less reliant on those who evaluate it and more reliant on you who are creating it. And I think that that's a much better way to live as an actor and an artist. And then let your agents deal with the transactional stuff. Keep the transactional in right relationship. Like you said, you've got to have a reel, you've got to have a headshot, but do not allow that to become confused with your practice as an actor. Yeah.
What I love so much, kind of looping back to the practice idea, is whenever I think of the word, like a doctor in practice or a lawyer in practice, that word, when it's associated with those things, tends to feel like really professional.
Yeah.
And very, very valid.
Yeah.
Right? Like it feels like a valid choice to go and practice being a lawyer or having your own practice. It feels, but when somebody says an acting practice, I think even actors themselves don't believe that what they do is really of value, or in the same way that like a doctor or a lawyer is of value. Mm-hmm. And that is a big thing to be worked on.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So if you can start to think, if you're open to the idea of your acting being a practice, it is just as valid. Your career as an actor is just as valid, if not more so, than being a doctor or a lawyer, because it is the largest tradition, I think, of humanity, period. We are all storytellers. That's how we interact, is we tell stories with one another, whether it's through actual narrative or through like joking around with your friends, or, you know, that's how we communicate information, is through storytelling. And when actors don't believe that they're actually hooked into that, it's like a very lonely game.
Well, I think too many actors don't consider themselves storytellers. They consider themselves conduit for the playwright, who is the storyteller, or the screenwriter, or the director. Yeah. And too many actors, too many acting teachers, too many casting directors, too many directors have treated actors like puppets.
Yeah.
Where I get actors going, just tell me what to do. You know, when an actor's on set and they just look at the director and go, I can do it however you want, just tell me. We've reduced ourselves to puppetry.
Yeah.
And we're not storytellers. And that's not the tradition.
Yeah.
The tradition is to offer oneself to the service of a collaborative, communal experience.
Yeah, ideally.
Ideally. And in doing so, provide some form of healing or service to others. And that's the tradition. And if we lose sight of that, then being a doctor is more valuable than being an actor. Right. But it doesn't have to be that, because we are all in the pursuit of the healing of others, the healing of society, the expression, whether it's through entertainment or education or simply storytelling. We're in the pursuit of something larger. And unless you're in that pursuit, I'm not sure you are in practice. You just want to be an actor for a job. And that's okay. But there's other jobs that have more benefits than being an actor.
And a lot more financial security. If somebody's watching this and they're like, you know what, I think I am right now in that transactional mode.
Yeah.
But I'm starting to see that it could be the other way. Mm-hmm. What advice would you give them to start working their way towards the more artistic, hooked in practice sort of thing? Because I think I don't think it's like something somebody could just like flip a switch and just suddenly be wonderfully in there. You know, are there exercises or things you have people do in order to help get them to this space?
Yeah, that's really great. That's a great question. First thing, to live a career in this way, that's in alignment with your life and your art and your business, to live in that way, it's much more difficult. It takes much more time. It is definitely the harder path, for sure. And there is louder voices telling you not to do this than there are telling you to do this. Any voice that matters for the artist is a whisper. It's not going to be no inspired voices yelling over your TV or your phone or anything like that, right? So the first step to this is listening, truthfully. But listening to what? And I would suggest that the first step is to listening to what matters to you in your life, not in your acting, but what matters to you in your life. And if I were to ask somebody who was interested in really making this shift, I would have them articulate, well, what are the 3 things that matter to you the most in your life? Now, that might be family, it might be business, it might be money, or who knows what it is. But the fastest way to tell is to look at your watch and look at your wallet. That'll tell you what matters the most. Where do you spend the most time? Where do you spend the most money? But let's say that there's somebody who said, listen, it's my family, it's my financial security, and it's my religious practice. Those are the 3 most important things in my life. Great. That's a good starting point, because then we have to align the rest of your work and life to those 3 things. And where you go off, you will experience pain. Anything in disalignment will become painful. Yeah. And so this isn't about work-life balance. It's about work-life alignment. And then we start to see how I live my art is how I live my life, and how I live my life is how I live my art. And now I like to describe it like I'm spinning an axle instead of different wheels on a car. I'm just spinning the axle. I'm spinning the thing in the middle that turns everything else. But to move our focus towards that, I believe begins first by examining life and listening deeply to what matters. And then by examining my acting and ask, how am I approaching my acting? If I'm approaching my acting in any way with finite language that points towards a result, and dare I say, choosing an objective, choosing tactics. If I say that, I mean, I don't mind, I'll go there. But dare I say, doing those things that can put us in a transactional relationship to acting itself. So we say, well, what objective is it? Now I've already predetermined that. So then I'm going to try to execute that. But then I'm supposed to leave that at the door. But then if I don't execute it, the teacher says, choose another objective. And now we're playing target practice. Declan Donnellan's great book, The Actor and the Target's driving me crazy, because then we have actors aiming for something specific. Well, that's incongruent with a creative economy perspective that aligns to the values of my life. And I can say this, if you happen to love your mother, and I make that assumption, not everybody does, but I might say, you know, how do you know you love her? What is your objective when you're loving? You know, if we reduce that relationship in your life to simple tactics and techniques, we would be seen as false and not real. But we do that to our acting. So I seek first to align those things. And then I think the proof is in the pudding. I don't like it when actors work to live better on stage than they do to live in life. I do not see how actors, I don't see how actors could be in pursuit of something truthful if they spend their life lying about their abilities and who they are.
Yeah.
And presenting something to an agent or presenting something to a casting director that they're not, but then expect to be truthful on camera. And this is tough. I'm going to say something really tough I've never said publicly, but I think this goes even into how we appear and how we work to appear to ourselves. And it breaks my heart when I see young, beautiful people who've had lots of work done, who appear more beautiful, and then come to me asking how they can be truthful in their work. And I go, you have to be truthful in your life. The practice of truth doesn't happen in the hour-long class that we do.
There's a level, and I talk a lot about this with my coach too, there's a level of self-awareness, but self-truth that is so difficult to like be like, first of all, pay attention to and then become okay with. Like when you start to tell the truth about yourself to yourself and accept the truth about who you are and what you're not and what you love and what you don't and what you really care about and what you don't, it's going to shift everything. And it's so difficult because we're not raised to really think of our lives in this way that we're talking about, right? Like that's not a thing that like we all get taught in school. You know, our parents' generation, I don't know how old you are, but our parents' generation were raised by another generation who like don't talk about feelings. And so, you know, I know for sure some of the stuff that I've learned is like how to even identify what feelings I'm feeling. Right? Because I wasn't really taught feeling language as a kid.
No.
Right? When I was introduced to the feelings wheel, have you seen that thing? The feelings wheel?
No,
where it's like the core feelings and then it, oh my gosh, you have to Google it.
I have. Yeah, it's got the core feelings and then it distills out into like little micro things that fit into the core.
Yeah.
Yes, I've seen it.
Yeah, so that if you can go, if you're like, I feel angry, but it's not anger. What is it? And I look on the wheel and I'm like, oh, I'm feeling this. Or I'm really happy. Right.
Yes.
It's such a great tool, not only for a human, but like also for actors, just FYI. But like we weren't taught these things. And so getting to this place takes so much uncomfortable work. And yesterday I had my coach on the IG Live and we talked about, it was like the second round of talking about self-confidence. And her definition of self-confidence is being willing to feel uncomfortable, being willing to feel feelings and know that you're not going to die.
That's beautiful. Yeah, right? Yeah, it's wonderful.
She actually says it way better than me. But that's the general idea. And it's that section of, and she also, it was so cool. She also talked about how she's like, everybody draws a line where, you know, there are bad feelings that they're willing to feel, but there's a line where they won't go past it. Like they don't want to feel terror. They don't want to feel like they're willing to feel disappointment, but they're not willing to feel this, like these other bad things. And she goes, but what happens is when you draw that line, you're also drawing a line for your happy stuff. So you're willing to feel happy, but you're not willing to feel joy and honor and, you know, enjoyment of yourself and being proud of yourself. So if you're starting to limit that, right? So when you start to learn, like what you're talking about here is learning how to even like start to feel things and understand yourself, and then open that gap up wider, so that you are then becoming a full person who is then bringing that to and an offering of the service of the acting. Would you say that's true, or am I like totally missing that?
That sounds really good to me. And I would even go a step further and say that work that you're doing, that hard work that we all need to be doing, that is investigating the body and our feelings and all of the things personally, that acting and then offering it to acting, then acting offers more of that back to us. And it is a constant practice in that way.
Yeah. So if somebody is, this is just me being very curious about this. So an actor comes to you, they start out, they're probably all real transactional in the beginning, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because that's just like how we're taught, right?
Like
how, like if you've gone to school for acting in any sort of way, like college or a program or whatever, that's what you're taught.
Yep.
Because they're trying to teach you skills that are supposed to last you forever, but it's not teaching you like the actual skill that you need to really thrive, I don't think.
Right.
Having gone to school, I have a musical theater degree. So somebody comes to you and they're like in transactional mode and they start to do this work with you. If we get real practical with it, how does what they do practically for their career start to shift? Like, what does that look like? Because do you know what I'm saying? Like, it's, you know, it goes from like, I need all these things and I'm going to take this class and why am I not doing this? And I'm, you know, I'm submitting myself for auditions and I'm doing this stuff, which is necessary, right? But like, is it just the approach that they're like the reason and the how, like the why, or is there something that shifts and they do things differently practically?
Yes, and really.
That's a tough question. Sorry.
Yeah, no, that's great. That's a great question. And I'll go back to that word confidence and doubt and stuff. And in the career book, I said that doubt is not the opposite of confidence. Doubt is the opposite of worthiness. And so when we're
say that again for the people in the back. Say it again for the people in the back. That's so good. In the back.
Doubt is not the opposite of confidence. It's the opposite of worthiness. And so as an actor, one of the things that causes a transactional mindset is that we are seeking substitutes for that emptiness in a way. And so we study acting, we go through, and the college programs can be so wonderful, but they're limited because they're operating under a semester thing or a quarter thing. The teachers have to provide rubrics, and many of the teachers, I hate to say this, I love it because I love my college professor teachers, and so many of them mean well, but I also know that in many colleges, I'll say it, this is just mean.
Do it.
But there's an epidemic of mediocrity because they're teaching what they were taught, and they're teaching the same shit for 30 years. Yeah. And they love their students, and they mean very, very well, often. Yeah. But they get them for 6 weeks, or they get them for 12 weeks, and you can't, what kind of transformation can be facilitated in that amount of time entirely? Yeah. Now it can happen, I've seen it happen, but anyway. So we have to resort to things we can put in the syllabus and that we can grade or that we can evaluate, and so it reduces the tradition down to an execution. And so an actor who comes from a transactional point of view, more often than not, is equating their worth to their achievements. And so well, that's just like, I don't know about anybody else, but that's just sort of me too, right? Yeah, right. And I'm the only one who does it. Like, it's my struggle completely. It's like, so how do I make more money? How do I write more books? How do I get, that struggle that we fight? And to shift an actor in their acting, so all the way at the beginning of the stuff that matters, to shift it away from seeking the teacher or the director's approval, for seeking their own approval, or a teacher they had in college who told them that they sucked, whatever it is, to rewire the voice in the mind, to move us not towards an evaluation of our achievements, but an evaluation in spite of our achievements. And when an actor does that, maybe nothing about the way they administer their career changes. They've still got to submit, they've still got to hustle, but their relationship to that changes. And it'll feel like freedom. It'll taste like joy, and it'll smell like art.
Not farts.
Yeah.
Art.
Art. And so what you see is that there's a freedom in doing it. There's a release in doing it, because it isn't the job. It's not the casting director. It's not the director or the agent or their resume, in a very real way, not in an Instagram meme way, but in a very actualized way, that determines their worth. But if we do not see that in their acting, we will not find that in the administration of their career.
Yeah.
And then if we don't see that in their life, it's hard to see it in their acting.
Yeah.
So I've never met anyone who's transactional in their career, but free in their acting. I haven't seen it. And I've never met anyone who's free or transactional in their life, but free in their acting. It's just these things are connected. And to treat them compartmentally is to reduce the power of all of them.
That is so good. That's like, Benjamin, it's like beyond good.
Well, I mean, it just seems to make sense.
It completely makes sense. And it makes me real sad inside that that's not what is the norm right now.
Right.
You know, like, I think we could get there. I mean, we as a generation are way more open to talking about our feelings and going through that and doing, self-care and like learning all this stuff. So I think there's hope for the future. And that future for the people who are watching could be now. If you can start to do this work now, what a difference it would make. And what a great time to do this work as well, as the industry is still not really up to, in production. There's some time to take with yourself and do this work, so that as you move forward and as we're, moving into the next seasons, whenever it opens up, the way you approach it's going to be so much more healthy and fun, right? And loving towards yourself. That's amazing. So I know that you have kind of, when you do keynotes and stuff, you give people kind of three things that they could do to sort of, what do you call it, to form an unshakable career. I love that word, unshakable. That's such a good word.
Yeah. Good.
So are these really practical things, or are they like mindset shifts? What are they? What are these three things that you kind of point out?
Right. Well, they have to be both.
Okay.
They have to be both. And I think that's very important. That let me explain this, because this gets very interesting, because
love it.
Occasionally I'm accused of not being practical enough. And I understand.
Yeah.
But what we want to do always is offer a philosophy and distill it into practical action. And I want everybody to have both, because otherwise we end up developing a codependency to the knowledge, and that's not good. But if we understand the philosophy and we can see how it distills into action, then the actor is empowered to do it on their own. I'm not. Look, this is my friend Clorinda. She's done our workshop. She's in class. She knows about.
So she gets it.
I'm really not interested in working with actors all the time. I mean, they're my favorite. I love it. It's my favorite stuff in the world. But in fact, I was coaching an actor this morning, and I said, "Listen, you don't always need me." She was like, "What kind of coach are you?" I'm like, I'm not interested in a codependent relationship here. You're a grown-up. You do shit. So I'm teaching a philosophy that then is distilled into action, and we have to have both. If we only have action and no philosophy, then we find that the actor is looking for answers. If we only have philosophy but no action, then we find the actor isn't making any forward progress. So we have to have both. So
sorry, that sound is my dog trying to play with her toy. If you're squeaking, that's what it is. She's like, because my husband just got home from, she is a little Yorkie Russell. Hold on a second. Lucy, come here. I don't know if you can see her. She's right there. Yes, I can. Look, she's got this thing
so cute. I love it. Where are you? You're in Los Angeles, obviously.
Oh, yeah. I'm over in Tarzana.
Oh, great. I love it over there. That's wonderful.
Yeah. Where are you?
I'm in Highland Park.
Oh, okay. Right on. Great. That's awesome. Yeah.
So the three things that an actor can do every day, and you'd have to probably read the book to get more about this, but the three things that an actor can do every day, number one is reach in. And what that is to say is to sharpen the axe, to light the fire, to keep the fire lit. It's work on the self, but I got to charge my phone. The suggestion here is that work on yourself causatively is a part of your career.
Mm-hmm.
It's a part of the work, not, and what I mean by work on the self is not necessarily, anyway, it'll all balance out in a second. So working on the self as part of the career,
mm-hmm.
and keeping the inspiration going, keeping the fire lit, keeping the act sharp. And that can look like very specific things. It might look like going to a museum. It might look like seeing a play. It might look like reading a play. It might look like calling your mother. It might look like finally forgiving somebody. It might look like that hard work. And that, I'm suggesting, should be a part of the 40-hour-a-week work week for an actor. It should be a part of that. And then the next is reaching to. Now, reaching to is really the special sauce. This is where we keep the actor from becoming narcissistic, because it's not all about self-help, everybody. I mean, I've met plenty of people addicted to self-help books, and I'm like, you got to stop reading this shit. You got to start doing stuff.
Because what that is doing is really, it's what they're what my coach would call buffering, right?
Absolutely.
Where we start to or as Dallas Travers used to say, preparing to get ready to begin.
Yes.
Right? Like, it was just this constant cycle, because it's a form of procrastination, because you don't really believe internally that you can change, or that you can do it, or that you can learn. So when you don't feel like that you can, then suddenly, like, you have to read those books a million times, or your kitchen needs to be cleaned right now.
Yep, absolutely.
You know? Absolutely. Or I have to do 40,000 takes on my self-tape before I send it in.
Absolutely. Yeah. And that's just another form of avoidance and corporate economy projected at the so but we have to go in and keep the fire lit, and so reaching in is the process of staying inspired, of reminding yourself of the story of who you really are, and staying in the alignment to those priorities of your life.
I hope people really understand that this first step is like equally, if not more important than doing scene work.
Absolutely.
It's like, it is the key to you being a well-rounded and beautiful actor who everyone wants to work with.
I think it is, and then I'm going to say that the next thing is the key, which is reaching to.
Reaching to. Okay, see, I got ahead of myself. Oh my God.
No, you're totally right. You're right on both accounts. It's absolutely all correct. And reaching to is the thing I see actors do the least. Reaching to is when I reach to others to offer myself or to help without the expectation of return. This is the process by which I offer significance to others. And that might look like sending your agent a Starbucks gift card just because, and just say, hey, take a break on me, take a coffee break. It might look like calling an actor you know and being like, do you need any help today with a self-tape? Just offering of myself to others without the expectation of return. And it's a powerful shift in an actor's career, because at that point, we spend part of our day, part of our week, part of our life career bringing significance to others. And in doing so, we increase our significance. And it's just the reciprocity of life. It's not my idea. This has been taught to us for thousands of years. So that's the greatest thing ever.
Shoot. And that's just what happens when I try to pull it away from my dog.
That's the best thing ever.
She is a fan of that toy. Oh my gosh.
I'm taking it as like an amen and from the choir.
That's exactly right. Yes, absolutely.
So that's the second thing, to reach to. So I would challenge every actor, who can you reach to every day? And it's also how we can warm up cold contacts, by reaching to without expectation of return, reaching to offer handwritten letters, or these kinds of things. It's an active part of our career.
Yeah.
And then the third thing you can do is reaching out. And reaching out is the forward-facing work that we do, the traditional work we might do around managing our career. But we're going to approach it slightly differently. So from a creative economy, the reaching out is in form of an offering. And so the idea behind that is, if everything you create is good news, you should be a joy to share it with everybody. And so that's the framework within which we would approach work like Bonnie Gillespie does with her self-management practice and things like that. All of that work that many actors know to do, this is the spirit with which we do that work, that is reaching out. And so if we do all three of these things, I find it to be a much more holistic and aligned approach to our career.
Yeah.
Every day, 40 hours a week.
Yeah, and by the way, for those of you who are like, 40 hours a week, yes, boo-boo, 40 hours a week.
Well, listen, it's so funny. In the book and in our workshop, we articulate just how many hours we have. And so I think this is right. I think there's 168 hours in a week, 7 days, 24 hours. 160, and let's imagine that you sleep for 8, which who's doing that anymore? But let's imagine that you sleep for 8, so that's 56. 56 minus 168 is like, and then what was that? Oh gosh, what's the math? It's like 100 and something, 112 or something. And then let's imagine that you have a 40-hour job already, full-time job. So then 112 minus 40 ends up around 72. So after a full-time job, you would still have 72 hours a week to do whatever you want to do. Now, I'm not counting for like eating and pooping and talking and things like this. Like, I get it. I'm just making a point here. But 72 hours, that's enough for another full-time job, and you'd still have 32 hours to do whatever you want with your life. Yeah. So the idea that we don't have the time is just our brain protecting us from the efforts of the life. And,
right. Well, I also like, I don't know, I'm assuming that you probably know Audrey Moore with Audrey Helps Actors.
I don't know her personally, but I know who she is.
Yeah, she's really great. I remember listening to one of her episodes, and she talked about, she was like, if you claim that you want to be a full-time actor working on a show, for example, those people pulled in 12 to 16 hours, 5 to 6 days a week.
Yeah, right.
So if you, as an actor who is unemployed as an actor or is just doing a job here or there, if you're not taking the time that you should be, basically you need to kind of, it's like working out where you have to up your endurance, right? And you got to work on the skill of being okay with your schedule, being busy, being okay with working on this stuff all the time. And I feel like once you're in it, especially as an actor who's not really trying to run a business or anything else outside of their acting business, it can feel good, especially in the approach that you're talking about, right? Because it feels so much more, I don't know how to say it. It just feels lighter.
I hope so.
It feels lighter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the point that Audrey's making there is so good, because I say all the time, even in class, and our classes are 4 hours long, and
that's a long ass class, man. That's long.
It's long. It's long.
It's enough time though to get everybody up. It sounds like, so that's good.
No, I don't get everybody up.
Oh.
No, we do 5 things a night. It's going deep, not wide. We're going, but it's 4 hours with breaks in between each scene, and even that. And I make a very strong point. I said, if you cannot remain present for 4 hours once a week with breaks every hour, you don't got a chance. And so even every element of my class is specifically designed as a training tool for the world. And even 4 hours of presence while people are working, while I'm teaching, and I'm teaching the whole class. I'm not just working with the actors. I don't direct the scenes at all. I don't coach the scenes. I teach the scenes. It's a very different discipline. And so everyone is paying attention. Everyone is growing and learning. If you can't stay present for 4 hours, and if you don't see that as a part of your practice and training, then you don't have a shot on set.
Yeah. Yeah. And for those who are listening who are like, oh my God, I don't think I could stay present for 4 solid hours. It's okay. It's a skill you can learn.
It's a practice.
It's a practice. It's not like something, we don't intrinsically know how to do this stuff, right? It's like my bookkeeper, when she came over to help me set up my QuickBooks, I was like, I can't, like, it's so panic inducing for me. It's just, I'm not terrible at math, but I don't enjoy it. Yeah. And it's so complicated. And I told her, I was like, I feel like such an idiot. She's like, why? You didn't go to school for this.
Right,
you have no training. Why do you think you have to be perfect at something that you don't know how to do yet?
Right.
It's something that you can learn to do. It's a practice that you can, you're not, when you do yoga, it's not like you're doing handstands day one. No. You know what I mean? Right? That's not what's happening. Like, it takes a little while to really get your body and your mind to go to the place that we need it to go.
Right.
And that's what's so lovely about you, is that you take the time and you guide them there, and it really does sound like you have such a great community and family built around this idea of acting as a practice. So good. For those who are watching, definitely buy his book if you don't have it. I will tell you, it is, again, it's laid out like a Stephen Pressfield book, where it looks almost like poetry.
Yeah,
It's not like
very
this
easy to read.
dense.
Very
Yeah,
easy
it's
to read.
very easy to read. I would say it's a quick read if you
Mhm.
want to just go right through it, but it's a slow read if you want to actually do the stuff that you're having to do, and thinking through the stuff. One question I forgot to ask you is, what is your favorite part about your job? What do you love most about doing all this stuff?
The people, for
The
like
people.
100%. I love people,
Yeah.
and that's easy. That's it. I'm thinking there must be something more, but that's it. That's it. Just like talking with you and being with people, and it's a genuine thing that I love.
Yeah.
It's my favorite thing. We do every week. We do these free coffee chats on Thursdays at 11 o'clock, and we're not having one this week. I just said that we're not having one tomorrow because I'm out of town. But we do these talks, and we'll have, I don't know, 50, 65 people show up, and I do a little talk, and then we talk about questions and stuff. And I get so excited for it because I just genuinely love to be with people.
Yeah. Has it been really hard, like not being able to be in person?
Yeah.
So hard.
Especially at the beginning. I'm getting the rhythm of it a little bit, but oh my gosh, we've moved all our classes to Zoom in the first week of the quarantine, and we have about almost 100 students across the 3 nights, and it's like it's a different energy because I feel like I'm not talking to anything.
Yeah, it's really different. Yeah. And it's funny, I'm naturally an introvert. You might not guess that about me because well, basically I get my energy from being alone, and then I like to expel it on people. Yeah. And I didn't, during the first couple weeks of the quarantine, I was like, this is easy. I do this all the time. Like, this is not a thing for me to not go out, whatever. Now though, I miss people. I miss just being around them for a couple of hours at a time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That
is so tough. If people are really interested and they're like intrigued and they're like, how can I work with him? How can I talk to him? What is this class all about? Where can they find you? What's the best way to connect with you? Tell them all about it.
So social media, Instagram's probably the best for us. We do a lot of communicating with people that way. Our website is crashacting.com, and you can apply. We have a little thing for our online classes where you have to apply, and I don't care about your resume or your audition. I just want to get to know who you are and where you're coming from, and because it's not always the right fit. And then that's it. There must be something else. I don't know if there's anything else. That's pretty much it. Yeah, Instagram and our website is a really great way. And then we do keep on our Instagram. We always announce when we're doing free events, and we do, when we're in person, we do a free You the Career talk. I do these talks at SAG about twice a year usually. And I present the You the Career philosophies and ideas at SAG. And then we do that for non-SAG members at our studio. And we have wine and cheese, and it was just really just get everybody drinking and talking about good things and like how bad
lubricated.
Right.
Exactly. That's awesome. Awesome. Do you it sounds like since you're from Atlanta, you go there a lot to do classes and stuff?
I do some. I've done let's see, in Atlanta I've done, maybe I've only done 1 or 2 classes in Atlanta.
Criminal.
I know. I spend most of this is amazing. It's such a beautiful part. I spend most of my time in Dublin working with actors in Ireland.
Oh, that's right. I saw that on your website where you're like, we have a retreat in Dublin.
Yeah, like we do. It's insane.
Awesome.
We do this retreat twice a year. I just finished a workshop with Irish actors yesterday on Zoom, but I usually go at least twice a year, and we start in Dublin. We take 8 actors from the United States, 8 actors from Ireland, and we drive out to County Cork, about 4 hours out of Dublin on the coast. And we work in this little bitty town in a 13th century yoga studio, and we surf in the mornings, and then we do acting stuff, and we mix up the actors. So it's American actors and Irish actors working together. I mean, it's like the greatest thing ever. Then we go to the pubs and it's ridiculous. It's the most amazing thing
man,
ever.
That makes me wish I was still acting.
Well, this might be a great time to pick it up again.
To get back into it. Is that your heritage? Are you Irish?
Oh yeah, like every American, more or less Irish. Yeah, but, somewhere along the way.
Somewhere. Wow, that's so cool. Well, definitely. So basically, if you're watching this and you've not been to his studio and you want to be a part of that trip, this might be the start of your journey.
Yeah, right. We're supposed to go in September, but we were supposed to go earlier. We canceled it. Supposed to go in September, and now I don't know if we'll make it or not. But next year we for sure will.
Yeah, hopefully there'll be a vaccine by next year.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Well, this has been amazing. I know that I got a lot out of it, and I hope that everybody else did as well. We're going to put this on our IGTV. We're also going to put it on our YouTube channel so people can listen to it and or watch it while they're doing chores or doing other
Right,
stuff.
exactly.
But thank you so much for coming on here. I really, really appreciate it. It was so good to meet you. And I can't wait to meet you in person. I feel like you and I should go and have drinks sometime.
Yes, for sure. You've been to the studio. You've done all that. And I can't wait to
know.
send people to your company and get their reels done. Somebody emailed me today about that. So
Oh, awesome.
I'm
Send them my way.
Yeah,
We're definitely
I
open
absolutely
now.
will.
Like, we're in full swing again. So it's been like,
good.
oh yeah, remember what you had to do 3 months ago? Here it all is all at once. It's
Yeah, right.
very,
Good.
yeah, it's good. It's a good problem to have.
Very good.
Well, yeah, so thank you so much for coming on. I really, really appreciate it. And everybody check out his book. For those of you guys who keep asking what the title is, it's called You, the Career. You can get it on Amazon. I bought it on Kindle. So it's very inexpensive. It's like $7 or $8. And it will help to start shifting how you are approaching what you're doing in your acting career to feel more aligned to your values, to the things that you really want as a human. And that there rounds it out and makes it so much better. So excellent.
Thank you so much for having me.
You're
so
amazing.
Wonderful. And I'll tell Michael you said hello.
I will. Yeah, that's so cool. He messaged me and was like, the two of you together. This is so amazing. Oh, that was like, you're so sweet. Awesome. Okay, well, I'm going to X you out, and we will hopefully have you back maybe in the future. Would you be down to do that? Awesome.
Anytime.
Okay. All right, we'll talk to you later.
Bye.
Bye.